I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
And I'm Anna.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
So welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 62nd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast. And tonight we're going to be talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 10, The Red Angel.
What's this one about?
I think it's about an angel that happens to be red.
Oh, interesting. That one was a bit on the nose for them. It's not an obol for Charon this time.
It's not a quote from literature or the Bible.
Right.
Or...
They brought in some show namers from Next Generation.
The episode was written by Chris Silvestri and Anthony Marinville and directed by Hanelle M. Culpepper. The cool thing about Culpepper is that she is directing the series premiere episode of the #Picard show.
Yep.
And she did direct a Season 1 episode, Vaulting Ambition. That was the one where we get the big reveal where Lorca is from the Mirror Universe.
Wait, what?
Spoiler for the previous season of the show we're talking about.
Right.
So they got the same director to do the episode with the big reveal last year and the big reveal this year with the Red Angel identity.
Huh.
So, do you think that was like an actual conscious decision?
I don't know. It seems like an odd coincidence if it isn't. But they do have like the same group of directors that they repeat.
This is she going to be their Shyamalan?
Well, maybe we'll have a big twist in #Picard show in the first episode. No, but
it's actually the Wesley show.
Oh, is that? Yeah, actually, like Will Wheaton, Picard's gonna die, and then like Will Wheaton like walks into like the frame, and he just takes over command.
Payback time.
What a weird way to start off a Picard show.
Yeah. But we will go ahead and just give our opening statements. We'll give some spoiler-free thoughts on this episode before we really delve into it and spoil everything. So, real quick, does anyone want to go first, or should I go first?
I don't know. I feel like maybe our guest Anna should go first, but if you're feeling strong, I know we've got some opinions here.
Okay, Anna, do you want to go first, or do you want me to kick it off?
You go ahead.
Okay, so this episode was a very frustrating watch for me. In fact, I'd go as far as to say this is probably my least favorite episode of Season 2, possibly of the entire show. I don't totally hate it. We're not in like threshold level bad or code of honor level bad or anything like that.
Remind me, it's threshold Janeway the Lizard?
Yeah.
Just checking.
Like every Star Trek show has definitely done episodes that are horrifically worse than this.
You get a few stinkers, and because Disco's track record was so generally good with Season 1, which is usually like...
Or Season 1 or Season 2?
I would say Season 1 and 2,
okay.
Honestly, but where the other ones normally stumble for like 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
There was one episode in Season 1 I really didn't like, when Saru was going crazy on the planet Pavo.
Yeah.
But I feel like I might like it more if I revisit it now, after we've kind of explored that side of Saru's...
Fighting Mad Saru.
...personality. Yeah. Like, I think that episode might make more sense to me now, not be as jarring and out of place and out of character.
Yeah.
But as far as this episode goes, as far as the Red Angel, there's just some really desperate attempts in here to make things too melodramatic that I think fell flat. There were some plot issues that really bothered me. There is a lot of contrivances that bothered me. However, there are some good things in here. There are several character moments that I really enjoyed, and then the big reveal at the end, which we'll get into momentarily, I actually liked that, and it kind of turned me around the episode. I was not really having a good time until like that very end, and it was like, okay, well, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But Anna, how about yourself?
I don't want to sound too much like I'm just echoing you, but I really was not. I haven't been a big fan of the several episodes leading up to this one, and a lot of my issues with those kind of carried over into this one, with like some of their choices in regards to like I guess tone. Though this one is, I guess,
and you're feeling that if I recall, the tone is diverging too much from what you feel the season 1 tone, the establishment tone was.
Yeah, and it's very jarring.
We should talk about that because I consider the tone of season 2 an improvement over season 1, and I think a lot of fans do. But you're someone who largely came back into Star Trek because of Discovery.
Yeah.
And you really enjoyed season 1, I think, more than a lot of us did.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is that just like, if this was the tone that I had had from the beginning, I probably would feel much differently about it. As I don't dislike this, I just feel
it wouldn't have been a deal breaker like, oh, I just don't like this at all. But
yeah, there's like a weird barrier now, I think, between thinking about the things that happened in season 1 and the things that are happening in season 2, and it's like there's such a dramatic tonal change that it's hard to believe that some of the things in the first season that occurred happened in the same universe that the second season takes place in.
So did you prefer season 1 when they were like doing stuff with the Klingons and all of that? With the war?
It's weird to say because, like, within the context of Discovery, yes. But, like, for example, the way that I feel about this is, like, for example, if, I don't know, let's say in the middle of Voyager, they had taken a very hard turn towards, like, Game of Thrones level weird political machinations and violence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would feel jarring. And that's where I am here. Like, while I did like
but
that
sort of the opposite, like, you feel like they've kind of walked it back.
Yeah.
Is that tone change that you're talking about, like, the general kind of darker, kind of a little bit edgier, a little bit more boundary pushing of season 1? Is that what, you know, what would you say is missing this season that you had in season 1?
Well, this is weird because, I mean, and I don't want to sound
Lorca.
too much like I'm hating on season 2 because I do like it.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel that the lack of a, like, strong continuing narrative that goes from episode to episode the way that the first season did feels like a drop in quality.
Right.
Like, I understand that the level of craft that goes into the, like, development of each of these individual episodes is still solid. Like, even the ones that I don't like, I can acknowledge have good aspects to them. But it just feels like so much less thought through.
Right.
Like, when I watched the first season, I thought that every single piece that fell into place was, like, calculated.
Right.
Basically.
That's interesting because this first season, like, the writing for that was actually very chaotic, and they had
like behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, like the guy who created the show got fired, and they had to make a lot of like last minute adjustments, and they ended up changing a lot of the initial plan. But there was some of that going on in season 2 also. So I think season 3 might be the first time where we get like an
actual consistent
consistent writing all the way through.
Well, if I can, I'm gonna jump in here with mine and take it. If you finish your thoughts, feel free to step on mine though. But because I have even though I'm a person who was raised on standalone episode Star Trek, and so this is much more up my alley overall. But I'm also having some issues with it. I don't know where it would stand in my overall disco fandom, or like, you know, where it stands up against other episodes. But it is in the lower tier, and it's that thing that we've talked about in the past where plot holes just happen, or not plot holes, but plot points just happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, for instance, that Pike is, you know, in the previous episode when Cornwell showed up and told him what her plan was to take down Section 31, he was just like, okay, I guess we're going after Section 31. And here they find out what the mystery of the Red Angel seems to be. And somebody was like, we want to catch him. And he's like, okay, I guess we're catching him. And the characters just jump right into things are without thinking, like, for just 10 seconds about it. Like, I want a little of Next Generation, I think. Like, a little bit of that, Ready Room thing where Geordi and Riker and all those guys are talking to Picard and they're hashing out an idea a little bit. Because I feel like they just jump into things, and also, like things like Ariam's, funeral was a little heavy-handed, and I was like, for somebody that we only got to know last episode, and they're like, she touched my heart and made me a better person, and all that, and I'm like, wait, what's her name again?
It was telling as opposed to showing.
I think
it's a big no-no in writing.
I think it's kind of funny. We had some of our comments that we got in response to that episode. There were several I noticed that misspelled Ariam's name or called her something else, and I think that's sort of telling how established she was, which is not at all.
Well, and part of what my issues were with it is that each episode does feel very of the episode, stuff that too much stuff is supposed to have happened in between what we see, and I don't like that.
Right, you want that organic follow through where the characters are driving the story. I think. Do you think maybe more character driven?
I mean, I would like to see more individual character moments be earned, but it's difficult to explain what I don't like without just saying I don't like any of it.
Right. I think when we do the deeper dive into it after the summary, we'll probably get into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's part of it too, is I'm very worried about spoiling something in this first segment, so I don't...
Let me ask you just one last thing, and then we'll go ahead and move into the summary and go full on spoilers. But Anna, you did say that you've had some trouble with the shift in Discovery in the more recent episodes.
Yeah.
But you mentioned to me previously that you liked this episode a little bit more than the last 2 or 3 before it.
Yeah.
So is that because this does feel less like a standalone story? This feels more like it's connecting the previous episodes to the upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I don't enjoy it that much, because it doesn't have its own identity or stand apart as much. But what was it, without spoiling anything, what was it that you think they were doing a little bit better with this episode?
Well, just moving from the previous episode into this episode where they did what is one of my biggest pet peeves, where they developed Ariam solely for the emotional payoff of killing her. Mm-hmm. And I fully expected for this episode just to be business as usual. They operated previously in the series without mentioning her, and that they were just going to do the same from here on out. But opening with the funeral, and showing some actual emotional fallout for the rest of the characters in the cast, and there's a really good moment where the new crew member enters the bridge for the first time, and everybody's like, oh god, are we gonna hold it together? Those parts, I think, though I would have liked to see more of the journey leading up to the death of this character, that is what I want to see.
Okay.
I want to see more relation to the rest of the I don't know what's happening. I want to see it play out for people.
You want things to have consequence to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they do in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and why it's probably the greatest Star Trek show we'll ever have ever.
It's okay.
But, Dave has not watched all of DS9, so he doesn't understand. In his ignorance, he cannot comprehend the gloriousness.
Maybe we can travel back in time and alter this show after I've seen it all, and then I'll just be like, good point, Father.
Yeah, we'll come back in time through a micro wormhole.
Yeah. Not
unlike the Red Angel. And we'll just go ahead and go into the story of this episode.
Smooth segue.
And spoil everything for you. So if you don't want spoilers, tune out now. Dave?
They know what they're here for. Hit it.
So we start things off dealing with the aftermath of last week's episode, specifically the death of Ariam. The crew has a funeral for her and shoot her body out into space on a torpedo a la Spock in The Wrath of Khan, except Saru sings a Kelpian song instead of Scotty playing the bagpipes. We then have a meeting in Pike's ready room, where we learn that the Section 31 station has been destroyed and there are no traces of the sinister Control AI anywhere. But everyone must be on the lookout for it in case it does re-emerge. Tilly interrupts the meeting with a huge revelation. She has determined the identity of the titular Red Angel. According to data in a file called Project Daedalus, recovered from the deceased Arium, the Red Angel's bio-neural signature matches that of Michael Burnham. Leyland and Giorgio show up and beam over from their Section 31 ship just in time to provide even more explanation. Leyland reveals that 20 years earlier, Starfleet and the Klingon Empire competed in a kind of temporal arms race, each side trying to perfect time travel technology before the other. Project Daedalus was a Section 31 attempt to create a time-traveling exosuit. The Red Angel is apparently Project Daedalus. Stamets, Tilly, and Giorgio put together a plan to capture the Red Angel using phase discriminators to trap her in the current time the next time she shows up. They decide to set up the trap at ESOF 4, one of the old test sites for Project Daedalus, where they can use a plasma reactor to power their Red Angel mousetrap. While everyone is working on the trap, Burnham has a one-on-one with Leyland where we get some really juicy details. We finally learn the specifics of Leyland's connection to the death of Burnham's parents. He confesses to Burnham that her parents worked for him in Section 31, that they were at the Doctori Alpha colony on assignment. Burnham had always believed it was her fault the Klingons murdered her family there. As a child, she had asked her parents to stay on the colony so that she could witness the upcoming supernova. But Klingons attacked the colony and murdered her parents. According to Leyland, they actually chose to remain on the colony because they needed the energy from the supernova for Project Daedalus. The Klingons who attacked them were in fact tracking down a time crystal that her parents were using in the experiments. Burnham now knows that their deaths are not her fault, but as soon as she stops blaming herself, she starts blaming Leland. She gives him 2 solid punches to the face and leaves the room. She goes to blow off some steam by beating the shit out of a punching bag when Spock shows up to have some sibling heart-to-heart with her. For the first time, he seems genuinely concerned for her and supportive. Like last week, he tells her she needs to learn to stop blaming herself for everything, but this time he says it in a much nicer and less judgmental and condescending manner. He accepts her apology for when she intentionally tried to hurt him as a child. It would seem that their brother-sister relationship is finally going to get patched up. But Spock is also there on business. He tells her that he has something else to bring to her attention. He believes that she herself is the variance in the Red Angel's appearances, that they can use her as bait to draw her future self out. The crew puts together a plan to put Burnham's life on the line on ESOF 4 to expose Burnham to the planet's naturally toxic atmosphere and force her future self to intervene and save her own life. Giorgio, Tilly, Stamets, and Spock beam down to set up the phase discriminators. Culber is on standby to revive Burnham, and Spock straps his foster sister into a chair in the middle of the facility. They expose her to the deadly environment by opening up the building's sunroof. Burnham immediately begins to scream in agony, gasping for air, while acidic particles fall on her, burning her skin. The crew monitoring from both the ship above and from a safe part of the facility are worried for her and decide to pull the plug on the operation. Former Emperor Giorgio herself is showing surprise amounts of concern. Burnham, barely able to speak, is able to make out the word variance. Spock interprets this as her acknowledgement that she is the variance and they must continue. Spock uses his phaser to keep Giorgio and everyone else from interfering. With still no sign of the Angel and Burnham seemingly dying for no reason, Pike gives the order to beam up Burnham. But they are unable to get a lock because of tachyon radiation interfering with their transporter, a red wormhole opens in the sky above Esau 4, and the Red Angel appears floating above Burnham. Up in space, Leyland and Tyler on the Section 31 ship are trying to close the wormhole with a graviton beam and keep the Red Angel from returning to her time. Leyland has to override the security buffers to get enough power in the beam, and did the ship just stab him in the eye when he used that retinal scanner? We don't see exactly what happens, but Tyler is able to close the wormhole. The Angel is able to revive the unconscious Burnham with some kind of energy pulse. Giorgio and Stamets activate their mousetrap and contain the Red Angel with Ghostbuster-style laser beams and erect a containment field around her. Once grounded, the Red Angel steps out of her suit and falls to the floor in front of Burnham. And now for the big twist. The Angel is not a future Michael Burnham, but does have a strong resemblance. Burnham, who has just been taken to the brink of death and put through hell, looks into the eyes of the unmasked Angel and recognizes her as her thought-to-be long-dead mother. "Mom?" she asks. Roll credits.
That was pretty cool, by the way. I gotta say, I did think that was a neat reveal.
The ending.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Because they so sort of nonchalantly doled out, it's Burnham early on, that I was like, well, I think that, I assume that they did it early in the episode because people had kind of guessed it. A lot of people guessed that.
Just get it out of the way.
It'd be one of the few kind of like, it would make sense. They can't have it be somebody from the old show or one of the older shows, because that would just feel, it wouldn't feel of Discovery. And so this had been guessed at in some quarters. So I was just like, yeah, they're going to get it out there, and they're going to figure out what story they want to tell around it. Mm. But there was a twist.
Also, it occurred to me when doing that summary that they don't actually roll credits after they cut to the preview for next week.
Yeah, that's true.
So I should stop saying roll credits at the end of all my summaries.
You should go back and edit that in a time travel. Go
back through a micro wormhole. What
were you about to say, Ann? Sorry, I just saw you were about to say something.
No worries. What I was going to say was that they definitely suckered me with it.
Yeah.
With like the nonchalance of how they had been just doling out plot information over the past several episodes when they were just like, yeah, it's Michael. I was like, that tracks. She's the main character, basically. So whatever, it's Michael.
Yeah.
But were you disappointed? Were y'all disappointed when they were saying? Because I was like, that felt like just like so obvious. It felt like the easiest thing you could do. Like it didn't.
I was
there were so many cool possibilities.
Really?
Mildly disappointed.
Yeah, that was part of my frustration watching the episode.
Was that they had just casually revealed that it was Michael,
or just that that the reveal was not super interesting sounding. I was hoping as I watched it, I was like, well, hopefully they're going to do something interesting with it. Yeah. But it was among the least interesting possibilities.
As I was
in my head, at least.
As I was watching the episode, I was trying to like talk myself into accepting it and trying to tell myself like, well, they could do like some really cool stuff if we see like future Burnham and then do like a cool timey-wimey time jumping thing with the Red Angel suit, like, because I do tend to enjoy that type of stuff. I like the temporal anomalies. I like the time travel.
You didn't know it was going to lead to Federation crew members hooking up a jigsaw-style torture device to kill her with. Make your choice, Burnham.
Yeah.
Well, that was another thing, is that the chair that they strap her into, it looked like they're gonna like execute someone violently, and just like the poison atmosphere, like that was so extra. We didn't need all of that.
Well, it does occur to me that on a simple level, you could have like the doctor will administer like a toxic, like a poison or something like that to the system. The body will start to shut down, and hopefully the Red Angel will show up. But I guess they did kind of think, well, it's got to be a real threat. It has to be outside of our control to some degree. They didn't talk about it in detail like they would on Next Generation, but they... I'm glad they did it the way they did, to be honest. I think if they had done it the other way, it would have been boring.
It would not have been dramatic at all if they had just injected her with poison.
Yeah. Oh, but by the way, I have to ask this may be a dumb question. Red Angel is from the future. Is there not a good chance that the Red Angel would know that it got captured at this point in time?
That's like a dumb question.
If they thought Michael was the Red Angel, wouldn't they think like, well, if she knows about this plan, like she's probably going to remember it in the future, so it's going to be hard to trick her. So
Right.
maybe we need to keep her, like, out of the loop.
That
Maybe we need to catch her, like, off guard.
I think that, like, they were just trying to establish a situation where, like, it didn't matter if she knew she was going to get captured, that if she didn't intervene and get captured, she was going to not exist.
I think
Right.
I just came up with, like, a better way where they could have wrote that.
Yeah.
Is that they needed, obviously, just, like, for moral reasons, like, you wanted Michael to, like, be the one who has, like, the idea, or, like, she gives permission for them to, like, try to kill her in order to, like, draw out the Red Angel.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to make it work, she would need to not know about it. So what she could have done is ask Spock to do a mind meld procedure and make her forget her plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, like, surprise attack her. And the whole episode is maybe, like...
Saru just comes out and cold cocks her.
Maybe the whole episode, because we know how capable and clever and dangerous she is, so maybe the whole episode could be, like, her, like, trying to escape everyone else who's, like, they're, like, trying to kill her, and just be like, oh my god, why is all my friends trying to kill me?
That would have been so weird and fucked up, though.
That's like that Black Mirror episode. Did you ever see it?
Probably, yeah, but...
That one where that person is wandering around in this, like, weird, creepy small town, and people are looking out the windows, and they're chasing her with masks and terrorizing her. The reveal at the end...
Spoilers.
Spoiler warning for Black Mirror Season 1. Was that she, in fact, did this, like, heinous, like, child murder or something like that?
Yeah, but that wasn't, like, her... Like, she didn't decide to go do this, did she? Like,
No,
it
was a punishment, and then they were going to, like, clearly mind wipe her again and put her through this horrific ordeal again. And then the morality was like, well, if she doesn't remember her crime, is she really being punished, or is it like an innocent person is being punished? I feel like if they were chasing around Burnham like that, it would make the crew look like horrible people.
No, because then at the end, like, or maybe the audience knows the entire time, or maybe, like, you save it for, like, a reveal at the end.
That is a traumatic idea.
They did something similar in Deep Space Nine that I don't want to go into that or spoil it now, but it worked really well there. This would be different enough that it wouldn't feel like a repeat of that, and I think it would have worked. And it would have made this episode a little bit more of, like, a self-contained narrative, which would have made me like it more.
Right.
I mean, it also, that is so much darker of a premise than what they went with.
But you like the dark stuff.
I know, it would have made it feel more like Season 1.
So, would all three of us have liked it better?
I think I would need a pretty strong, some contrivances in there to be revealed to convince me that the best thing for them to do was to try and hunt her down, world's most dangerous.
It's like the plan goes wrong.
Game style.
The plan goes wrong, and, like, we know how badass she is.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like she escapes or whatever,
Yeah.
and because Spock mind meld forgot her, made her forget it.
And we know Spock has that ability.
Yeah.
As established in, what was it? Not Plato's Stepchild, but the one with Requiem for Methuselah, Season 3 of TOS.
I could see it working. I'd have to turn it over in my head to see to think if I would like it better. But I do kind of like the idea of. I always kind of like those, like, one man stands alone kind of thing.
You're gonna like this DS9 episode when you get to it.
Nice. But I have a technical question too. Have time crystals ever been mentioned before?
So time crystals were mentioned one time previously on the Star Trek show Star Trek Discovery. In Season 1, in the episode Magics to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
That's what Harry Mudd used.
I feel like that's the kind of thing Harry Mudd uses, but seems hokey around other people.
Yeah, I feel like it's the thing that unclever writers use when they need a plot device or MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's like, did you get some of them tachyon rocks?
I mean, tachyon rocks actually sounds
no.
That's
one of my criticisms about this episode, is that just feels like such a convenient contrivance.
Mm-hmm.
That also just makes the whole Star Trek timeline really weird if you have this advanced level of technology developed at this time period. Why aren't they able to do anything close to this in later seasons?
I mean, yes, granted, it was a plot point that they use. Time travel is a plot point they've used several times, but usually it was like, we have to go to extreme measures. Yeah, we have to slingshot around the sun or something like that.
And even that seems way too easy to me.
Right.
The biggest problem.
Right, because anybody could do that. Yeah, it's honestly, it was because slingshotting was not yet in the common vernacular of the audience, so it was a kind of a cool thing to see done. But yeah, like, if you're like, well, did you get enough time crystals harvested? It's like a video game thing. It sounds hokey.
Yeah.
Or it's like Marvel with, like, the Infinity Gems or Infinity Stones for the movies. But Like
it sounds quasi-mystical or prosaic.
But I do kind of like that we do get some explanation on the Red Angel, like that it uses micro wormholes. That it's not like totally like unlimited time travel. It can go somewhere and then it gets like yanked back with like a rubber band. So it can only show up briefly and then has to return.
I was going to say, it isn't actually like time travel as depicted in other series for that reason.
Right.
It's extremely limited. You're anchored to one point, and like you said, you're being ripped back. So
I would just like to completely non sequitur mention there's a great old Outer Limits episode with Robert Culp called Demon with a Glass Hand. It's written by Harlan Ellison. It was the first time I ever heard a time travel reference that used the rubber band metaphor. And it is different from this, but is a super great episode that happens to be all filmed in the Bradbury Hotel that was used as the set piece for Blade Runner. Same hotel.
Cool.
Anyway, Demon with a Glass Hand, awesome title. Go check it out.
That is a really cool sci-fi deep cut.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I like it. But the Red Angel with the time crystal thing, I feel like I might like time crystal as a concept more if maybe they explain that. Maybe they're setting up something for season 3. I don't know. They've mentioned it twice now, and it does seem like, it's just like for plot convenience purposes, but maybe they are trying to build up to something.
If they had said that a time crystal is something that you can construct if you have this high technology to gather tachyon particles, and you do this and you infuse something with it, and it's takes a year to do it and whatever, and then you can have a time crystal. And it's
Tholians have to do it because they're like crystal people.
Yeah.
So you can bring in Tholians.
If it's the net result of clearly some work, but time crystal sounds like something you pick off of a tree.
It feels kind of like making lightsabers. Like it's just like a little machine that runs off of a kyber crystal, which kind of demystifies that.
I think that it didn't bother me when I watched the episode, but the more you guys say time crystal, the more angry I get about it. It sounds so like weirdly juvenile, like the kind of
like
thing
it's what Link has to find in the forest.
Not even that. It sounds like my force field works on time crystals, like the kind of thing that you would make up when you're 8. I don't like it.
So I have one other big complaint about one moment in this episode that I found just incredibly cringy.
Yeah.
And I think we might have like some neat opinions on this. And then after this, I'll try to focus on more positive stuff. Get into that good.
I do have some things
I
too.
mentioned.
Yeah.
But let me just throw out this other complaint, and it is the scene where Giorgio is flirting with Stamets,
right, and
with Culber.
Yep.
And I like a lot of the ideas that they were trying to use there, but the beginning of that scene just starts off as like incredibly awkward.
Yeah.
When you have Dr. Culber walk into engineering, and he's wearing like his cool civilian clothes. Okay, whatever, that's fine. But he walks in there and just like, he seems like he's like improvising a scene, like acting like auditions for a role or something. Just like just improv something with that character. When he walks in, he's just like, "Hey, Tilly, have you seen the Admiral? Oh, she's not here." And then
I forgot. Is that really what?
Yeah.
Basically,
then
he was just looking for somebody.
Then you have like the awkward tension between Stamets and Culber, and then you have Giorgio say like, "Oh, Tilly, why is this bothering you? Like, learn to enjoy their discomfort. Who were you raised by, Red?" And she goes, "Oh, my mom. She wasn't around." Blah, blah. And then cut back to Giorgio's. "Stop talking." I was like, this is the most awkward editing, the most awkward writing.
Yeah.
And then
I actually did feel like, that felt like how Tilly would respond to that.
Well, so it is interesting you say that, because I do think it's absolutely fucking batshit bonkers that he would walk into engineering like, "Oh, I hope I don't see my boyfriend who literally is here all the time when I step into this room."
This is just where I go to ask people where other people are on the ship. Usually someone in here knows.
That said, they do have that awkward interaction right before they spring the trap on the Red Angel, and I have to believe that he actually made that up because he was looking for the opportunity to have that conversation with Stamets and was surprised by the fact that there were other people there.
That makes sense. It would have been nice to have some indication maybe of that, but it does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think Tilly spoke for us all when at the end of that scene she was like,
"What the fuck just
what was
happened?"
that?
Yeah, because that's how I was...
Actually, that would have been a great place to drop the F-bomb for season 2.
Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
And I was even wondering, I was like, are they intentionally trying to do something weird here? Are they going to be like, I don't know, like everyone's high on mushrooms again? Or is there like...
I'll say this. Giorgio has been progressively camping it up.
Yeah.
She's or vamping it up. She's very like, she's really like leaning into the I'm kind of a badass and I know it and I'm running this joint and I'm just gonna kind of walk all over anybody.
Yeah.
I both love it on some level because Michelle Yeoh is delivering it. She can saunter around in leather and like snark at people and they're just kind of like, what do we do?
Yeah.
We're all the straight edge people and she's scary.
Yeah. She dresses like she's in Judas Priest. What do I do?
I've liked everything they've done with the character for the most part until this episode. And this made me think, like, do I really want a show starring this character if they're going to have moments like this?
Yeah.
Really.
And in some way, well, Father, I know that you're like kind of, your thoughts keep turning back to, she is a genocidal, person from a horrible place.
Yeah, Space Hitler.
She's Space Hitler. And yet she's having, like, campy little exchanges of, like, that are cute dialogue moments.
That said, the universe that they portray in Season 1 is not the universe that they portray in Season 2. If you look at Season 2 on its own, Georgiou is not a terrible person.
Right, as depicted, she doesn't seem to be the person, the same person who would, like, genocide somebody at the drop of a hat.
Or
she jokes about it, but she kind of, it's almost like you don't feel it, the impact as much. Those of you who watch the Fast and Furious series, yes, I'm going to do it.
I've never seen any of those movies.
Jason Statham's character is a villain in that, and he's a bad person who at one point kills off a good guy character. It's a big thing. Later on, though, they have one of those comic book style thing where he is forced to work with the heroes, and he ends up doing something very important to help him out, and they're just kind of like, all right. They never, like, they stop mentioning at all that he killed one of their dudes, and he just, and like, I get why. He's a charismatic dude. He's fun to have around on the team. He's got he butts heads with The Rock all the time, and it's fun. But, yeah, they just kind of, like, just dropped his evilness.
and they do that a lot with, I think we might have mentioned this before, but like with X-Men comics, like half of the X-Men started off as villains.
Yeah.
Rogue, Gambit.
Yeah, arguably even the from the Avengers, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Yes. Even though they were never really X-Men, were they?
I guess they started. Yeah, they
were X-Men villains turned Avengers.
Yeah. Did you say Magneto?
Yeah, Magneto was their biggest villain, and then he
became such a good guy that he was like the teacher for like the New Mutants.
He's too much of a good guy these days. But and Dragon Ball Z does this too. Like all of Goku's allies started off as like one of his enemies.
Bad guys. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
But
that said, a selling point in Georgiou's favor. She wasn't the worst person in the Mirror Universe. In fact, there was someone who was like, she's not racist enough. I want it to be more racist.
So she was the second worst person in the Mirror Universe. Thanks a lot, Lorca, for making Giorgio better by comparison. Mm-hmm. And another thing about that scene that I really want to get into this, because I think we might have some interesting opinions, is that the flirtation with that of... When I was watching this, I was actually thinking the Women at Work podcast are going to hate this. Mm-hmm. Because they've already voiced problems with the Mirror Universe being used to portray all these evil people that are also fluid morality and fluid sexuality. It's like
right, they're like
evil people are all bi or pansexual.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because that's like such a hedonist, villainous thing to do. Only Ming the Merciless does that.
And I was okay with maybe Giorgio's just bi in both universes,
right? Yeah.
And then because we saw her in bed with the Orions in season 1 with a boy and a girl, but I thought it was also weird that we finally have like these gay characters in Star Trek, like these openly gay men, which we've never had before. And it's saying like, oh, like you weren't even gay in the other universe, like you would like girls sometimes. It's like just let the gay guys be gay, like.
Did they say he was pansexual?
Yeah, but then they kind of imply maybe everyone in the Mirror Universe is.
Well, hate that, first of all.
And her use of Poppy with the Puerto Rican guy was kind of weird.
But I interpreted that not as like her actually doling out information about the Mirror Universe, but like the equivalent of dropping a fireball in a hallway and not caring whether or not your party was in it.
Yeah, maybe
this is a D&D reference, isn't it? It threw me for a minute because I was just like, fireballs, wait, what?
No, I mean, like, it really seemed like she just was like, this is already awkward, so I'm going to make it as awkward as possible because she's evil and she likes to see people be uncomfortable.
She had just said, she had a few lines in
Yeah.
this episode that I liked, like, you never learn to relish a little discomfort. That's a fun villain line.
I did kind of like that because just like weird thing about my personality is I do kind of love like when there's really awkward moments and my social interactions.
Makes
and
so much sense.
And it's like when people feel uncomfortable because like just something really awkward happened. Like I kind of like watching that. But
she also had a line in there that I liked. She talking to actually I don't know who she was talking to. When she said, "You never learn to relish." No, sorry, that's the one I just said. She says, "I prefer a little totalitarian efficiency."
Yeah,
it's a funny Nazi joke. I guess
I like that because that would be if you were Space Hitler and like you were like the emperor of your universe. You would miss being able to
make
do
the
that.
trains run on time.
I feel like Space Genghis Khan is more appropriate.
What?
She was an empress.
Both of them, either one kind of seems too generous to Genghis Khan and Hitler, because like neither one of them like murdered entire planets of people.
I mean, you're not wrong, but also like I feel super awkward about comparing real life genocide to obviously played out genocide.
Of the mirror universe, and this is my quasi defense of Georgia. I'm just going to briefly bring it up again. I believe in this universe, it seems like morality itself skews dark. Like, you are almost, like, born to be evil here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a DC Comics Earth 3 type of thing.
Unless you are already a kind of a passive, nice person, like that planet that in the original Mirror episode, then you're just like a victim in all universes, I guess. But yes, it's like, I guess you were, like, sort of destined to be bad in that one. So maybe it's a little more forgivable. I don't know.
That said, though, if you are destined to be bad and always be bad, that doesn't make a lot of sense for them to bring that character over to our universe and have them be relatable. So obviously there has to be some kind of just society is so pervasively shitty there that everyone is bad as a product of their station. Otherwise, Georgiou can't come to our universe and be like normal.
And I would love for her to just have some end game that she's working towards where she's actually planning on betraying everyone. And maybe she does have some like twisted but genuine affection for Burnham, because she did raise a Michael Burnham in her universe. Mm-hmm. And her relationship with that daughter soured when that daughter betrayed her to run off with Lorca. Mm-hmm. So I think her seeing like, oh, here's a Burnham who wouldn't betray me. Here's a Burnham who actually like regrets betraying the version of me that existed here.
I do think that the way they're portraying it is that her caring seems genuine. I wasn't sure early on, but the more I see of it, the more it feels real. You had talked about this before. Mm-hmm. You're pretty sure it's genuine.
She had like a legitimate moment of like real concern when Spock was like, no, she has to die.
It's hilarious that Space Hitler was like, please, Spock, don't shoot my surrogate daughter.
But I'm still a little...
Strange places.
I'm still a little suspicious, but I would love... Because I kind of want to see Section 31 and Starfleet punished for, like, trusting this person, so I kind of want her to, like, betray them.
Yeah.
And we know that they're going to eventually set up her own show, so we'll see how they go about setting that up. But I do want to get into, like, some of, like, the good character stuff. Yep. And one character that we have not mentioned at all, who's in this episode a little bit, is Ash Tyler. Mm-hmm. We kind of get the true reunification of him and Burnham. Like, we get to see them, like, kiss again, and it
I liked how that kind of awkwardly built up to it. Mm-hmm. It was like they didn't quite know what to say to each other, and they were both trying to express that they cared, but there was, like, so much... There had already been so much history and awkwardness that it was like, well, we can't just kiss again or something like that, even if we maybe want to. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of just happens naturally. That scene felt organic to me, even if some of the episode plot points didn't.
I kind of was thinking that they were gonna like go a little bit further and actually like have sex again, because Burnham was like about to like go off and face death.
Yeah.
Instead, they did something very different where she like broke down and had like this very like real reaction where she's crying like, oh my god, I'm so scared, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought that felt a little out of place, because we see these characters put in danger so often that you would think they would kind of...
I mean, I think that a certain part of that is that like she's gotten out of danger before. This is her walking towards it. Like, it's very much like a deliberate thing.
Right. I'm fascinated by sometimes stories where characters feel like they know they're walking into certain death. I think one of my very favorites ever was in The Abyss, when Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio's character is like, the only solution to the problem we're in is that I have to die. And it's a super like heartfelt and serious scene. And there was a little bit of that vibe to this one. I do think you're right that I like them showing that. I like seeing that not flaw in her, but that humanity in her. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if there is something that kind of keeps me a little distant, I don't agree with the criticisms that she's like too perfect. But I do find it easier to plug into a character who can occasionally show a little bit of that humanity slips through. It's I think why Spock was so endearing to viewers in the 60s was because he presented this logical thing, but honestly, even in any given episode, he would have some sarcasm, little bits of humor that snuck out. He would clearly get irritated with McCoy.
He'd have like full on breakdowns where he starts crying, like.
But those were rare. Those were like every 10 or 15 episodes, so that something like that would happen. But when it did, it was meaningful, and I think it's part of why he's beloved today. And I was very happy to see that happen, honestly.
But this brings up like one of the
Father's like. You wuss.
No, I'm not. Like this brings up one of the disappointments that I have in Star Trek Voyager, which I like every Star Trek show. I like Voyager, of course.
Voyager has a lot to recommend once it gets up and running.
One thing that I wish they could have done, and I understand why they probably felt they couldn't do it, is that with Janeway, she's always presented as such like a strong, iron-willed character that's just gonna like make shit happen when it needs to happen. And I wish that we could have seen a moment where, after having to shoulder all this responsibility for so long, be like the surrogate mother of this entire community of people stranded from their society. Mm-hmm. And I wish we'd
see some cracks emerge.
Yeah, I wanted to see like her like break down and have to like build herself back up. And I get why like they didn't want to have like the first woman captain in Star Trek. They didn't want to like have like a scene of her just like crying her eyes out. Like that would have been like the optics on that would have been bad.
We talked about this, I think,
we talked
paraphrasing, I think, Dwayne McDuffie, who said that, this is probably going back to the 1990s as a comics thing, Dwayne McDuffie, a black comic book writer, said that, there were so few black characters in comics that when you write a comic with a black character, he has to, be the avatar for every black person there, and so... it's like, well, if he's from the streets, then it's like you're saying black people are from the streets. If he's like overly articulate or something like that, then he's clearly trying to be this whitened up presentation, or I don't know. It's and the same goes for women or any minority. They end up having to be the avatar. So yes, the first notable female captain in Star Trek had this weight. I think you're right. I think that would have been an awesome scene to see if they could have. I don't know if they could have done it at the time.
Yeah, it makes me sad we didn't get it, but I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah.
Talking about Sonequa Martin Green's acting here, though, like when we see her, anytime she has to do something extreme, like when she has to cry in Ash Tyler's arms, when she has to like scream in pain, even though I thought that was too melodramatic, the torture chair. Whenever she has to like. When she's in a fight...
I thought that Pike was a little impassive while that was going on. He was like,
Yeah, I thought it was really weird that they were just, like, playing it over the loudspeakers. Like, it seems, like, really macabre.
Right, like, maybe it should have just been him alone in a ready room kind of thing where he's, like, looking pained and, like, like Obama and Hillary watching them take down Bin Laden and stuff like that. You're just really into the seriousness of the moment.
Yeah.
But instead, they're watching it like it's like a beheading on YouTube.
Yeah.
But the way that Sonequa Martin Green plays that, I thought is so well, and she's really showcased here.
Yeah, she's great.
I want to ask y'all what you think about when Leyland tells her the truth, and you have that shot of Michael where she goes from like expressing like surprise and disbelief to then like feeling relieved, like that guilt has been lifted from her, and then it turns into like anger and rage,
fury.
And you just see it like all in her face.
Yeah,
like that was so. I love this actress so much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I actually have anything to add to that. I agree with you on all counts. Sorry.
Also, I think generally speaking, with the exception of I guess like a couple episodes ago with Culver and Tyler, like them getting into a fight, I don't I like seeing characters, like, have very human reactions to things. And, like, I don't know how you receive that reveal without getting angry. And so, like, seeing her, like, physically punch Leyland in the face was, I think, really cathartic for me as a viewer. Because so often, like, the character is very restrained. And in fact, most of the people on the show are very restrained. And I like seeing that, like, explosive outburst of emotion.
Right. I could see realistically how it might... You might be sort of just numb from, like, trying to process it.
Yeah.
But it's going to vary by the individual person.
Yeah.
As she's, like, somebody who's been under so much sort of stress and strain lately, I definitely bought that she would just crack that dude in the face.
Yeah.
I was trying to decide when I was watching it, I was like, oh, it's kind of odd that he mentioned it to her. Like, he hasn't been shown to be a really nice guy. I guess there is some vague sense of guilt or humanity lurking beneath his heart. But we would later go on to find out. Am I correct that Michelle Yeoh
was
clearly, coerced it?
Well, maybe he wanted to, like, depower Giorgio's ability to blackmail him. So he's just like, I'm just going to come clean now. But
Right.
And speaking of Leyland, we have that weird thing where he gets, like, stabbed in the eye by the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the Federation put that in their microscope? Or whatever he was looking at?
I think we're intended to think that it's the control AI re-emerging. But if you watch that scene after he, like, falls to the floor, it looks like his eye, like, rebuilds itself.
Oh.
Like, it might be, like, nanotechnology.
You think there's, like, a little robotic thing going on down there? I didn't notice that specifically.
I didn't notice it until the third time I watched this episode.
What was he looking in, by the way?
He was doing a security check with a retinal scanner so that he could override the security buffer because their graviton beam wasn't strong enough, and so they needed to, like, override the safety protocols to increase the graviton beam power so they can close the wormhole.
I didn't actually consider that it might be the control AI. I was just thinking, like...
Giorgio did it?
No, I was thinking that, like, it was designed so that, like, you have to make the conscious decision of self-sacrifice to do this, because, like I don't know.
To turn
like
the graviton beam up to 11,
well, I mean, they
you
were,
have
like,
to get eye stabbed.
They were overriding power. Like,
what type of sadist designed the ship's computer?
This is the Jigsaw episode. We talked about this.
No, they were, like, doing something that it was not intended to do that I could foresee being used for nefarious purposes. So it was kind of like the make sure this is
some sort of security measure.
Yeah, like, make sure you really want to do this.
I think it's control.
It definitely, that was my assumption too, was that it was control. I wasn't quite. I was just trying to figure out, like, did control actually reconfigure the little viewmaster thing, or do they for some reason have a needle that pops out of that thing? So just prior to that it did something that was clearly, like, imitating him or practicing his voice or something.
Yeah, so that's what I thought at first.
Interesting.
I thought that, like, the computer, like, tried to kill him, or maybe did kill him, and then was imitating his voice.
Right, I think it imitated him when he was, like, issuing one or two commands or telling the computer to do something before, and then it spoke over the intercom in his voice.
But
with it's like the T2 and doing that kind of stuff.
Like, and I'll show it to y'all later, but with it, like, rebuilding his eye...
It could have actually been him.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he's
just under control.
He's gonna be like the new Arium. He's gonna be like the new agent.
That's weird because, I mean, we know it got, 25% of the AI upgrade?
Yeah.
So I was going to say, it's like, well, he obviously is not a cybernetic person like Arium, but maybe it doesn't need that anymore. Maybe it'll just drive around on
I guess
neural pathways.
I guess I just wasn't fucking paying attention to, like, this last half of the episode because, like, I don't know, I did not.
Sometimes a lot of stuff comes at you in these episodes.
That's the show's, like, high energy, fast pace that I think is sometimes a problem.
Yeah.
Is like when you have to watch something a couple times to get it. The audience needs to take responsibility and pay attention. But the show is supposed to make that kind of easy for us to do.
Yeah.
Fatheree, remember the episode where what you call it? Saru's ganglia drop off, and it has the big showdown with
Obel for Charon.
Obel for Charon. When the Red Angel shows up there, you and I watch that scene like 7 or 8 times in a row, trying to figure out.
That's the Sound of Thunder when they're on Kaminar.
Oh yeah, it's when they're on Kaminar. When the Red Angel arrived, we were like, is it attacking something, or is that another ship, or is that Section 31 ship? Because of the visual effect of it, how it moved around, where there were, like, these bursts, and then it'd move, and then it'd be a burst, and it would move again. and we couldn't quite tell what was happening,
Well,
and we had to watch it over and over.
It was micro wormholes. Like, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, I guess it does. But again, it was not something that, like, I guess they could have been more visually obvious about it at the time. But yeah, you're right. It is something that has been exonerated now, I suppose. Like, what a weird effect is now known to be micro wormholes.
And one last like character thing I want to bring up is that what I liked about Colbert and Stamets in this episode is that we finally get kind of hints that they might reconcile and get back together, which I would really like that.
That's how you interpreted that?
Yeah, like when he goes to get like therapy from the Admiral.
Yeah, but
and Spock was also trying to help in the previous episode. It seems like all these oddball people, the Admiral who wanted to genocide the Klingons, the emotionless Vulcan, they're all like, I think you guys might be made for each other.
I mean, I didn't really interpret it like that. As
Tell-
I was watching it, I
Tell
was
us
like,
your interpretation.
well, I mean, for all intents and purposes, like, he is a different person. Like, I mean, I'm going to tie this into what I've been saying. He is the season 2 of Star Trek Discovery now, and he was the season 1 of Star Trek Discovery before he died.
deep.
Like, there's a barrier between...
So
like,
he got way better?
I mean, sure, that's up to interpretation. And one thing that might
Cornwell
be for me
did,
might not be
like-
for someone else.
It seems like Cornwell's advice was generally meant to be taken as she knows her business and was assessing things correctly. She said, and right, do we agree with that?
Yeah.
That generally Cornwell seemed like she was... We, the viewers, were meant to take. She was kind of spot on.
Yeah, we got to see the therapist doing like cool therapy stuff.
You don't think so?
I mean, it just seems... It feels like a really weird point to make repeatedly, that he is different and that he feels different things, and that as much as he wants to feel the things that he did, he's experiencing them from a different point of view.
Right.
And, like, the conversation that they have right before they spring the mousetrap sort of, like, was indicative that, like, I don't know. I interpreted Stamets' remarks as, like, I've been so hurt by this, like, these events that I don't know how to reconcile them.
I think that's true.
Like,
That's
with
what
his
I thought for Stamets.
Comment, and then with Culver, his sort of, like, I'm functionally a different like, I don't know. If they
What
do
was
get back
the-
together, it'll feel really weird.
What was
because-
the end result of the conversation with Cornwell? What did she say right before Dr. Culber left?
So as I recall, that ended with the Admiral saying the only way to make a new road is to walk it. And she's basically
Nice
saying,
fortune
like,
cookie, Admiral.
it is, but the conversation before that, she's saying that, yeah, you're going to have to build like a new relationship, but if you choose to do that, you can do it. Like, you are new, things have changed, you're different now, but you might be able to make that work if you try. And if that's what you want to do, then you should do it.
Right. I guess she was sort of setting up a framework. I think he was like, well, either I love him or I don't. And it was like she was saying, look, you don't, it doesn't have to, what does she say? Like, love is a choice you make every day, or, that you make over and over again. So that it's not something that it's like you're over and done with it, and it's either on or off. It's something you reaffirm all the time, and
some of that's kind of silly and hokey, but I still get the interpretation that the show wants them to reconnect.
I do too, but, like, his language in regards to, like, he explicitly says a couple of times, I don't feel that way anymore.
He has
I'm not
doubt,
that person who felt that way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even feel or sound doubtful. He's, like, literally saying, like, I'm not that person.
Right.
I once loved him.
I feel like if
but
I was
don't
his
have the
therapist,
memory
I'd be
of it."
like, okay, you're telling me this over and over again. It's important. What the most important thing about what you're saying is you are not feeling it.
Well, and, like, when he makes that face when she's like, love is a conscious choice you make over and over again, like, I interpreted that as, like, you're not listening to me.
That's interesting because I think it's... I kind of think you're right that like it works for that, but I think the show wanted us to think that he was like, wise words indeed.
Yeah.
Because it ends with him saying, thank you, Admiral, and he smiles at her and walks out. You would think,
right,
like,
he could have been like, I need to get back on duty now, and something more awkward.
but you think
Yeah.
he's like feeling a little better about it, because then when we see him on the planet with Stamets, he kind of attempts to talk to him, but Stamets, who's been burnt by him previously, he's more like, we're working right now, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
So
Which is true, by the way.
yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah,
like
we're about
serious
to do
stuff.
it.
They're
Yeah,
like, we're about to hook
thing.
her up to the death chair. We don't have time to
like,
fix our
we're worried about your
relationship.
boyfriend later, bro. Like, we ain't got time for that.
That said, I could have easily seen his interpretation of the only way to forge a new path is to walk it, or whatever it was that you so succinctly
Maybe he
said.
needs to walk away.
That
from
he needs
Stamets.
to just walk his path, whatever his path is.
Yeah, maybe. And one possibility, I think it might be cool if he does break up with Stamets permanently, if he just leaves the ship and he's on the Section 31 show with Tyler, the man who killed him,
That would be
and Giorgio.
interesting.
We talked about this briefly in the last podcast,
Yeah.
right?
Wait, are they going to take Tyler to Section 31?
I think,
I feel pretty sure that they will.
They have the setup for that, and I want them to do that because I can actually cheer for him because I think he's actually
He's a redeemable character amongst a bunch of irredeemables.
Really? Giorgio obviously is the big bad, but he's done graphic bad things.
Not by his
to
own
people we
choice.
care-
Not through his own agency. He hasn't.
Technically, yes.
He's only been a hero. He's been a good soldier.
He and the person who perpetrated the actions have become one. They're a new entity.
I think it's more
they both share the memories and the
isn't it just
responsibility
it's
of taking
mainly
the actions.
Isn't it mainly Ash, but Voke's memories are just bouncing around in there? I think that's the balance that came out with Voke is not a voice in there saying do evil like a devil on the shoulder.
I don't think that either. I just think that he is both Ash and Voke smashed together, and so he does Ash Tyler himself does not, but the entity that is going by the name Ash Tyler now, that is the amalgamation of both of those personalities, does bear some responsibility.
I think the main thing that I felt was this season and why it was right for Culber to go and beat him up a little bit or just get his licks in when they had a fight a few episodes back was I felt his dealing with the fallout of it and maybe trying to make amends or in some way contact or help Culber deal with it, even if it was maybe just to stay away from out of his sight. I feel his sort of his post amalgamation thing he's kind of handled awkwardly, but I mostly let him off the hook for his Vogue stuff.
I have too, but it's also different. I'm not someone who was directly affected by him, and I definitely think it's really weird that so much of the crew was so eager to... and I guess this is probably a mark of being from the utopian future where they forgive and understand, but
Yeah, and it's also it's a trope it just as much as it is in the X-Men that if the character is liked, then the kind of by the audience, and people generally like Ash, then the characters are sometimes around them, even if they maybe wouldn't do this, are a little more quick to accept.
Okay.
And I don't think they were super quick to forgive him, because you do have, Stamets who confronts them in Season 1 and tells them, does it hurt? Does it, eat you alive that you murdered this brilliant, wonderful man? And Ash is just yes, it does. And Stamets is well, good.
Yeah, and that's fair. You're absolutely correct about that, but that's not something that we see a lot of in this season, where he is both a member of a shadowy organization who does shady things and the guy who did shady things previously, where they
right. I can imagine a lot of people on the ship would be get this guy off our ship.
Well, he is the guy that they tried to blame all of Arium's dirty deeds on, and they had him hauled off to his room and locked up. So
I think it's because they were focusing on sort of Pike and the command staff doing that, and I needed to see some people in the hallway spitting on him.
In fact, I think it's fair to say that the people of the USS Discovery owe Mr. Tyler an apology.
Maybe. Do they apologize twice? One for him and one for Vogue?
No, because Vogue is kind of dead.
Hey, can we quick talk about Spock, by the way?
Yeah.
I really liked Spock in this episode. I liked seeing a more humanized Spock. Of all the souls I've ever known, he was the most human. That's Star Trek, too.
Yeah, that line never made sense to me. We'll talk about that this summer when we talk about the movies. But
it was Kirk's filter on it, but yeah, we'll talk about it.
But yeah, there is good character stuff in this movie, just the plot itself. How the hell did they even learn that the AI that was... The control AI came from the future. They just completely brush over that.
Were there tachyon particles? I've been mentioning tachyon particles as a random thing, but did it ever get mentioned?
Yeah, they mentioned tachyon particles, but not in regards to that.
Yeah.
How did they trace it back to the probe and all that? If they just explain oh yeah, when we started studying Arium's memory banks, we learned this. It's just like, why did they want to capture the Red Angel? They don't really like focus on that. Like, oh, we need to like trap it.
I think they want answers.
Yeah, but just like let's have a conversation about like, well, what are the merits of capturing this? Like, is this practical? Is this what will we do? Like, just have those next generation boardroom meetings that I feel this show is embarrassed to do because they're like, we don't want people to think we're boring.
Right. Well, that is like the you remember when Trek 2009 came out? There was an article in The Onion that was sort of a pro Trek 2009 like thing spoofing. It's like, longtime Trek fans angry that, a new Star Trek movie is, entertaining to general audiences, doesn't feature, 30 minutes of discussions in, a boardroom or whatever. They were spoofing Trek's reputation for that. And I think that probably hurt somebody up there up on high. They were like, I think they don't want to feel so obvious that they're like, well, we want to talk about the problem, but we would rather have it revealed through action and not through characters saying, now is when we talk about the problem.
I think it should be revealed through thoughtfulness and however you want to depict that.
I agree. I think that being scared to have a conversation about ideas is a little bit cowardly, and Trek should be able to do that. Mm-hmm. To have people sit down and disagree and agree with it. I think that would be exciting to me, but this may be the part where they're like, well, we're trying to draft off of the energy of the 2009 movie, and there may be what I was kind of enjoying about this season doing it early on. Now we're kind of I'm seeing a bit more of the downside.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
That said, I thought Spock got in a couple nice zingers in this one. First of all, when he's like, it is logical she would be the Red Angel, as it seems to be trying to take on everyone's problems. And then his hope that she survives. I wrote it down. What did he actually say?
His joke.
It would therefore be ideal if you survived. Mm-hmm. That was Spock. The closest Spock could get to saying, "I hope you make it."
And this is also so close to how Spock was written in the 60s and on the original series.
Right.
I love the way that they write Spock. Even when they're doing weird stuff like making him lean into his emotions, or having like this family drama with Michael Burnham. I love the Spock. It feels so much like a younger version of that Leonard Nimoy Spock we saw in the 60s.
Also, I realize I've been saying a lot of mean things about Disco.
Yeah.
And one thing that I did really like was the kind of like Han Solo Leia moment that Ash and Michael have, where he like calls her right as she's about to get strapped into the chair, and he's like, Michael, and she's like, I know, Ash, I know it, and then gets in the chair. Like, I love that. I thought that sort of like cool confidence is what she is known for, and in the wake of such an emotional moment, I thought it was especially poignant to see her just get back right to it.
Yeah, I think she was like kind of reasserting her like professionalism there too. She's like, understood.
Yeah, and maybe she's even feeling like a little embarrassed about like having that vulnerable moment with him where like she broke down and cried, where she's like, no, I gotta be like serious and confident now. Mm-hmm. But unless either of y'all have anything else you want to get out there, I'll go ahead and move into Easter eggs.
Well, I'm super stoked about anything that Georgiou is in if they keep making her wear tight black leather and studs.
You know, I didn't like her leathery outfit in this episode. I normally like it, but this one it got too weird.
But you like the Deep Space Nine boob windows?
Well, it started on The Next Generation, but yeah, like, I mean, when I was a little boy watching Next Generation and I saw like Lursa and B'Etor and their Klingon boobs, I fell in love.
Okay. Yep. That's my Klingon boobs.
Yeah, no, I agree. Everybody deserves to have a fetish created by Star Trek. If that's...
I have several.
Yeah. I had the... I feel like I got the space age silver dresses on the 60s babes with the reruns I watched. That there's mine.
Have you ever like asked a girl if you could paint her green?
I can't say that I have.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and jump into the Easter eggs on that note.
All right, let's do it.
So first one I have, Leyland mentions that Burnham's parents were looking into time travel because they saw several technological leaps throughout different societies and throughout even human history that they think time travel might have played a role in.
Yep.
To me, this made me think of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, when we see Scotty go back in time and give someone the formula to transparent aluminum.
That is an interesting point. By the way, when that happened, I did not like it. I don't like the idea that... I feel like our history... I prefer in stories that one way or the other we have to own our history. And I don't like the notion that some good things happen because somebody came along and gave us a little hint, or bad things happen because some aliens tweaked our history. I kind of prefer it when we own it.
And Roddenberry hated the idea of like aliens built the pyramids or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I just wanted to point that out.
But yeah, no,
Star Trek does have a precedent of where we did see something like that happen.
It's true. It's true.
Also, temporal Cold War, you have Future Guy giving Suliban technology on Enterprise.
Yeah.
So.
When they mentioned the temporal
arms race.
Arms race.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
It wasn't the Cold War, it was the arms race.
Right.
But,
Different enough.
I guess.
And we already mentioned the time crystal that was a callback to Discovery Season 1.
Right.
And then we mentioned when Lieutenant Nilsson joins the bridge crew to replace Ariam.
Mm-hmm.
So weird thing about this, Ariam was played by two different actresses. One in Season 1 and then a different actress in Season 2. This character, Lieutenant Nilsson, we previously saw her in the Season 2 premiere, Brother. She was in the shuttle bay when they brought that asteroid on board.
Yeah.
But she's played by the Ariam actress from Season 1. And now she's replacing the actress who replaced her. So what I think happened is they had this actress who played Ariam. And they're going into Season 2, and they're like, hey, so we're going to kill your character, but don't worry, we're not going to fire you. We're going to hire someone else to play her, and then after she dies, you can just be at the same station on the bridge, but you don't have to wear all the makeup anymore. So,
do you think that that's why they killed off Ariam? Was the lady playing her just hated getting into makeup?
No, I think there is more to it than that, but
But in short, Ariam was replaced by Ariam.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, Ariam was replaced by Lieutenant Nelson, who is Ariam 1.0.
Yes.
So maybe there's some time travel stuff going here.
Do y'all think her character is going to get more screen time, or is she destined to be kind of sidelined?
Background set dressing again.
All right, so they're
really
like, we're going to kill off your character, but we're going to keep you around, but we're not really going to keep you around.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she'll be around as much as like anyone else. But...
Right, the equivalent of one of those people on Next Generation that you would see pass by in the hallway every once in a while.
Yeah, like Lieutenant J.
Yeah.
That's all I got on Easter eggs, not very much. So, Dave, I think you have some correspondence, some subspace transmissions.
Yes, receiving subspace transmissions, Admiral Fatheree.
Wait, are you an admiral and not a captain?
I don't like hierarchy, so
Oh, okay.
I kind of don't.
You picked the wrong show, son.
Yeah, I know.
All right. First off, from Facebook, we've got I'm gonna butcher this name, Riza H. Alshami.
Yeah, from Iran, I believe.
Yeah. If that is the case, that's super cool. And he says, and this is just real quick. What was the episode? This was the episode wherein the previous episode,
the Daedalus Project.
A Daedalus Project, which focused on the prison break, not prison break, but the
they break into a prison.
Break into a prison. Yeah. Okay.
And the death of Ariam.
And right, it was good, but they should have told us a little bit about Miriam and her past. For me, flashbacks into her life wasn't enough. Who was she and why did she become what she is now? Just as we were beginning to get to know her, bam, out of the airlock she goes. What gives, man? And I kind of think, are we mostly in that place?
Yeah.
Yeah, right on,
Absolutely.
brother. I agree.
Here's a question. Should the episode have shown more of her past, and would that have been enough? Or did they really need to seed it in earlier episodes?
The latter.
Yeah.
So I don't blame that episode, and I don't blame the writer of Michelle Paradise. I thought it was a pretty fantastically well-written episode.
Yeah.
If you're going to try and get me to care about a character in one episode, they did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, that was the best you could do in 53 minutes of screen time. So the episode was punished by the sins of the previous episodes, or by not planning the season out well enough to prepare for that death.
Also, I think part of it is the criticism that we've, I guess, reiterated multiple times, that like there isn't enough people talking. Like, if they had had any of those situations where Ariam was just hanging out with the rest of the crew, it would have felt like weird with the pacing of the show in general.
Yeah, so they're unable to do what...
Yeah. On
The Next Generation, we called it the pillar filler. When the writer Michael Piller came on, and he would add, like, the little character moments. Mm-hmm. You know, things like, Worf learns to like prune juice. Or, Picard is trying to get out of this dinner party with this boring guy that's going to talk his ear off because he wants to go find his saddle and go ride his horse around. Mm-hmm. And, you know, these little goofy kind of just character moments. It just feels like, oh yeah, these are like real, true people with like their own little quirks. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Discovery doesn't take the time. It doesn't stop to breathe enough to do that.
All right, and now just a single line message to us on YouTube from Colpo Rosso.
This is also in regards to last week's episode.
Right. Who writes, "We will see Ariam again next episode as the Red Angel."
Boy, that aged poorly.
Yeah. Better luck next time.
You know, I remember when I was guessing that the Red Angel, when we were throwing out guesses, I was like, I think it's Wesley and the Traveler from Next Generation.
Well, the thing is, there were so many theories thrown around, and one of them was, what if it's one of Michael's parents?
Yeah.
But that didn't even, like, I still kind of felt surprised, because I had heard every fucking possibility that there was.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, every time-traveling alien, every godlike alien, everybody who, and their father who might have been.
I mean, if I had to put money on it,
did you wait?
I said I was really pulling for it to be Archer.
Okay. I was thinking either Neelix or Morn, but neither of those.
Morn just shows up and he's like, looks around like he's the John Travolta. Like, where am I?
Oh yeah, that would have been perfect. But
unfortunately, that was not to be the case.
Another problem I had with this episode was they talked so much earlier about how the Red Angel suit has to be from the future. I was like, well, no, it apparently was like built 20 years ago. But I think that was just like to throw us off from like not suspecting it was her parents.
That's true. I guess they just kind of cheat that a little bit.
And this was one little good bit of writing where they set up that her parents actually worked on Project Daedalus.
Yeah.
But they do that in the same episode where they give us the reveal. Because if they had, like, for example, seeded that early, we would have figured it out.
Right. So they had a seed that Leyland had a responsibility, and then they later on that was like many episodes ago. Then he spills the beans and mentions Daedalus Project, and end of the episode we get the big reveal.
Yeah, but
it's also what comedically like Seinfeld and other shows like that do, where a in-joke from early on in the episode ends up being the big resolution that all the plot threads come together to it in the end.
Yeah, the dovetail at the end.
Yeah.
So that wraps up everything we have to say about this episode, The Red Angel. But, of course, if you have anything to say, feel free to comment on YouTube, on our website, tex-trek.com, or hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, wherever. And we'll be back Sunday night talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 11, Perpetual Infinity.
Whoa.
Which, it sounds like there should be a Star Trek episode called Perpetual Infinity.
Well, it will be.
It does. I think if you start Pink Floyd's The Wall 10 minutes into it, it perfectly syncs up.
Well, we'll have to experiment with that and find out. But until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all. Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter, @TXTrek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fathereeactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.